Great. For those of you newcomers, welcome. For existing active members, good to see you again. I'll be talking about the SPIFFE Continuum, that being the real set of values, not necessarily the real set of numbers, though there are some numbers in here. But before I get into it, I want to take a pause to recognize SPIFFE and SPIRE are where they're really at because of your involvement. If it wouldn't be for your participation, we wouldn't have accomplished as much as we have in relatively short time. I got the data here. These are top 50 most engaged contributors, participants based on PRs, interactions, filing issues, raising questions. I got this from an app called Orbit. It's available on orbit.love. I encourage you to check it out. I didn't get to fit everyone on the screen. There are 112 active people, but if I can get a virtual clap to go around the Zoom chat, that would be wonderful. And pat yourself in the back for it as well. So if we look back at the start of time, there's a lot that has been done. It doesn't appear as much if we get caught up into the day-to-day and what's coming up, but back from the first commit in 2017, we not have only defined a standard, a set of APIs and associated tooling in order to make service identity a reality, but support for a very large number of cloud providers and platforms has been added. There are integrations for Kubernetes, Docker, Vault, MySQL, Envoy, and many more. There are a very large number of integrations that keep coming up. From an operational standpoint and deployment models, there are a number of SPIRE topologies that are supported, big ones being nested and federated SPIRE. There is support for JOD-based SPIFFE identities. There is ways to scale up for resiliency and high availability. There is support for authenticating to third-party cloud services and third-party systems. There are extensible telemetry and health check subsystems, and there's also support for non-SPIFFE aware workloads. We, for the last release that we just cut this week, being 0.10, we released that under the banner of SPIRE runs at scale and supports a wide range of use cases, and that is the culmination of everything you see here on this particular slide. For those of you who've been in the community around a while and participated in the last community day, I want to highlight the set of events and accomplishments that have occurred since we last met in the fall. One, the project continues to thrive. It's doing well. The community grows larger. That can be evidenced by the number of public references and adopters, people who proudly talk about how they use Aspire, what are their plans around it. There is a very large number of planned deployments. Later today, we're going to have my colleague, Catherine Hicks, talk about a recent user survey where we pulled for some of that data. Slack for SPIFFE is a great place where a lot of meaningful discussion takes place daily. We have over 700 registered users. Since last community day, we've also spent a lot of time formalizing procedures around maintainership, around how to contribute, governance, how to engage. Notably, we've had one of the most distinguished contributors, Tyler Julian, step up and assume the role of maintainer. Tyler, along with Justin and Andrew, are going to be providing specific updates on some of the items I may call out, but dive a little bit deeper into the specifics. I want to recognize Tyler for his contribution to the project and, well, the capacity he has assumed to contribute to the project. Also, as part of formalizing this procedures, we have defined how to onboard new maintainers and expect that there will be events happening in that regard coming up soon. Number two, we've seen a lot of growth of ancillary projects. We've also seen community contributions to using Vault as an upstream CA. We saw from F5 and TransferWise a enhancement to the Kubernetes workload registrar to be CRD based. We've seen from a number of other folks integrations to Kafka, how to have the Kafka broker participate using SPIFFE IDs, and there are a number of other extensions happening there. And around packaging, we've seen Helm charts and other installers come up, so I wanted to recognize those. From a project management standpoint, since the last time we spoke, we've also embraced a theme-based roadmap to reason around releases in a way that we can make better strategic and tactical decisions that are responsive to the community needs. There are a lot of things we've been wanting to do for a while, and looking at that list, themes started to surface. We saw areas of wanting to improve the robustness of the project and keeping the lights on, serving existing users and making sure they can continue to push the limit of SPIRE. We also recognize that SPIRE today is very much an expert level system. It has a very high barrier of entry. There's a lot of things you need to know. You need to have domain expertise of a number of areas, and it's not necessarily very accessible to new users. So we are also making this a theme. And when we look at themes, we have a combination of major and minor themes we're going to be focusing on. But usability has been an active one since, along with keeping the lights on. Additionally, we want to make sure that we improve all the operational aspects of SPIRE. Yes, you have planned, deployed. Now, how do you manage from there on, and how do you make your life as an operator easier? And there are also areas of how do we extend SPIRE beyond its core, beyond the platforms that are supported today, to go all the way from binary to the application, to go into types of workloads that are not supported today, such as serverless. Other items I'm going to call out here, a lot of the maturity and growth has also been marked by a concerted effort to move from an early stage project to an incubation level project within the CNCF. As part of that, the project attained a core infrastructure best practices badge. I encourage you to check what the CII is about, but this was a very thorough self-certification about meeting software development and security best practices. In addition to that, the team conducted a security assessment for the CNCF 6 security group that has been checked in. It built on prior art that Evan, along with Justin Capos, Enrico Scatarella, and others had done prior, but it formalized and captured a lot of the threat modeling and security properties of the project. And taking these two things together, we have made a formal bid for moving on to the incubation stage that's currently under the final stages of review by Justin Cormack of the Technical Oversight Committee at CNCF. He should be completing the current stage, and from there on, and the couple next weeks, 2-3 weeks, it should be open up for public comment. So keep an eye out on that. We would love you to chime in and provide feedback on the motion. We had KubeCon happen since the time we talked, and we showcased a number of things at KubeCon that had great reception, particularly SPIRE authenticating to third-party cloud services via OIDC FAT, as well as secretless entry to databases. We also had great validation of, particularly with the latest release and leading up to that, of use of SPIRE nested topologies across multi-cloud deployments when you want to, when you have a shared database between trust domains that span provider boundaries or region boundaries, it becomes a challenge to maintain that. So you may want to look at how do you chain those Aspire servers, and in turn you get the benefit that you're segregating failure domains. And other noteworthy item here, which Justin Burke is going to provide a status on where's the spec for federation currently at. There's been a path that's been lit for service mesh interoperability. How do you have, and things that many of you, as you went through introductions, alluded to. This is very much a problem where there's a lot of interest to solve for service mesh interoperability, how to authenticate workloads from one service mesh to another, how to authenticate workloads in one Spire trust domain to a service mesh, or even just federation Spire to Spire. Cool. So before I pass it on, I do want to briefly touch on the roadmap for the upcoming release. We're targeting the next major release to be Aspire 1.0. It is important to note, as many know, we've had stable releases for a while. We just haven't put the 1.0 stamp on it. We feel we are ready for that, and with it, we want to declare production readiness. Andrew Harding and Tyler Julian are going to walk us through some of these items, but a lot of design and effort and active work is currently ongoing around server API refactors, the version 2 of the Spire APIs. There's also a lot of thought going on around how to solve for expired certificates and when rotation gets jammed. What are some of the improved failure modes in order to continue staying afloat and Spire can swim, continue to operate while at that. Tied to federation and the progression of that, we want to move federation from experimental and to stable and fully supported in Spire. And there's some other things we want to do around improving notifier plugins for critical integrations. How do you rotate trust bundles in AWS, and how do you do so for Puppet? We want to, keeping user experience and usability in mind, document and continue to extend integrations for critical use cases. Parallel to Spire, we are working on making sure client libraries that exist, Go SPIFFE and Java SPIFFE, are idiomatic. And we're also spending time on simplifying upgrades to new versions and simplifying the technical depth around data store plugins. Just as we have this banner for Aspire's production ready for major releases from there on, and we typically keep a cadence of one major release every 3 months or so and 2 minor releases in between. Some of the banners we are reasoning towards are Spire identities attesting from firmware to binary. From there on, Aspire is available everywhere from edge to function. That building a lot into the server API refactors, tracing the path towards it, but there's certainly integrations, tighter integrations to make sure different types of workloads are supported. And from there on, solving for authentication use cases that are not well addressed today by other protocols. We have published a public roadmap on the GitHub repo. I invite you to check that out. If you have questions or comments, please raise issues around it. We are becoming more rigorous and diligent about keeping projects and backlogs up to date and capturing milestones. So if you have questions around project direction, that's certainly the best place to check. We want to make that the source of truth.